Hey guys, Darren Murphy here, aka More Precious Dust. Let's slice some stuff up today, simply speaking. That land? Alright, so today we're going to go over the Simpler tool in Ableton. It's a very powerful tool, very versatile. I've used it a couple times on my previous album, and we're going to go through it a little bit and show you a couple of cool things that I like to do with it. It's not going to be a full comprehensive tutorial on the Simpler. You can go pretty deep with it, and there are plenty of YouTube videos out there doing that, so you can find those. Go to Instruments, and Simpler's right there. So we're going to drop it on a MIDI track. Boom. And it's blank. If you drop down the Simpler menu, you have different categories of instruments that will have a certain preset, a certain sound loaded into it. So that's a good way to get your feet wet with Simpler. But we are going to start with a blank Simpler. And there are three main modes to Simpler: Classic, One Shot, and Slice. Slice being the most powerful, and that's the one I want to focus on in this video. But let's go over Classic and Shot real quick. Before we do that though, we need to do some pot. Alright, we have our pot hit right here, and that's a sample we're going to drag into our Simpler tool to display what Classic and One Shot mode can do. So I'm going to highlight around it, hit Command E just to get rid of some of the dead space at the beginning and at the end. Highlight it again, hit Command J to consolidate. Now highlight the track that the Simpler tool is on, and we're going to drag our audio file into right where it says drop sample here. Simple as that. The waveform shows up, just like this waveform up here. Now you can drag in any audio file, audio sample under the sun, whether it's a one shot like we're doing here, or whether it's a whole song, which we will do later in the video when we get to the slice mode. So we're in our sample view right here. You can also toggle to a controls view, which gives you access to EQ, an LFO, and ADSR parameters. What I like to do is actually click this little arrow up, so the sample view pops up big right there, and the controls view by default is down there. Excuse me. So I left a little dead space at the beginning here just to display, just to show you guys that you can manipulate the start and end time of the sample by just dragging this arrow up. So let's get right up to the transient, and you can zoom in to get nice and surgical with it, something like that. Zoom out. And you can manipulate the endpoint as well if you want something nice and short, but I want it to ring out, so that endpoint is fine. So what Simpler is going to do to this sample is basically take it and map it on the keyboard, and as you change keys, as you hit different keys and you go up different semitones, the pitch of the sample will also go up different semitones. So let's hit a C. Okay, let's turn that down a little bit. There we go. So the default sound that we dragged in, which I hit on my pot, will map to C. But check this out. Pretty cool, huh? And classic mode is also polyphonic, so you can hit multiple notes at once. You can play chords. Pretty cool. So the question is though, even though the default sound is mapped on C, is that really a C? I don't think it is. So let's go into audio effects and let's grab a tuner and let's see what we have. It looks like we have a sharp A. So we're going to grab our frequency shifter, put it in front of the tuner, and we're going to use the fine tune knob to get that down to a flatten a little bit so the A is on target. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, and now we want to transpose it down to C. For whatever reason, classic mode doesn't have a transposition option. You have to go to one shot for that. And one shot's really great for drums and whatnot. And right now we're on trigger. So that means I hit a key, even if I let go of it, it's going to play the whole sample. But if I hit gate, it's only going to play when I actually hold down the key. So we want to transpose it, and we're going from A to C. So A sharp, B, C. So we're going up 3 semitones right there. So now that is actually a C. Let's double check our tuner. Yeah, looks pretty good. So let's pair this with a piano to make it sound a little more interesting. So I'm going to hold Command and I'm going to hit the record button on my piano. So let's see how that sounds. Sounds pretty cool. It's a good flair to the piano, and I did that just by hitting a pot. So there are a lot of other things that Classic and One Shot can do. Once again, I'm just showing you things that I like to do with it because I feel like tutorials on Ableton on YouTube have been way overdone. So definitely take a look at those to get a better grasp on Classic and One Shot. But now let's get into the meat of the video. Slice. So to display slice mode in the Simpler tool, I want to incorporate my new record player that my coolest aunt, Auntie Mo, gave me as a gift recently. And I was looking through our record collection and I came across a disco sample right here. And it is Evelyn King, I Don't Know If It's Right. That's the name of the song. What I'm about to do, I also don't know if it's right. Okay, so we just recorded about 1:30 from Evelyn King's I Don't Know If It's Right single off of my record player. And we're going to use that to display what slice mode can do on the Simpler instrument. And we're going to use my Live Push 2 controller here. You don't have to use this one. You can use any controller pretty much under the sun to do what I'm about to do. This one's obviously very nice. It's very seamless because it was made by Ableton. But the way that we're going to slice the sample up and map each slice to the pads, you could do that on a launch pad, and you can even do that on a MIDI keyboard. It'll just map to the keys, the black and white keys. You don't need a controller with pads to do this. So I already have a track here ready for a new Simpler instrument. So let's drop it down. Let's click slice. And we are going to drag our entire Evelyn King sample, about, a little plus 130, down in here. And so we're going to zoom in, and we're going to, this is like the static at the beginning, so we're going to take that out, and we're going to go here. All right, so what it's doing is it is slicing up the sample and mapping each slice onto my push 2 right now. So there's 64 pads, so you see 64 slices right there. The issue here, as you can see, is that it's only touching the first, 5-10 seconds of the clip because our sensitivity of transient reading is so high that it'll take anything, any little blip in audio increase to be a transient. What a transient is an increase in decibel, in gain. A quick one. Say if you have just a simple beat with the kick and a snare, both the kick and the snare, each hit is going to be considered a transient. But right now, once again, the program is so sensitive that it's considering even little blips in the music like this a transient. So let's see what that sounds like. Let me zoom out just so you can see which ones I'm hitting as I'm hitting them. It doesn't sound horrendous, but it also doesn't really sound musically interesting. So let's decrease the sensitivity so we can decrease the amount of slices in this area and spread the slices out basically across the entire sample. So we're going to take it down a notch. And as you see, if I get to a point of desensitivity, we're going to start decreasing the notes available to us because it's not going to be able to find 64 transients with the sensitivity level we have. So let's put it right about 64, like that. Okay, so let's see how that sounds.
Not sounding too bad.
Alright, so I kind of wish the music can stop right there, but it did because our playback is on mono. So basically it's going to, you hit a slice and it gets to the next slice, it's going to stop. So we're going to switch from our playback mode from mono to through. Now there's poly, which allows you to hit multiple notes at once, multiple pads at once, or multiple keys at once. That's not really what we want in this scenario because we are chopping up an entire song. But if you're chopping up a melodic instrument sample, poly can be very useful there. So let's go to through, and now when we hit one of our slices, you'll see that it will not end when it gets to the next slice, the next blue line here. Let's see if I have one. There we go. See? Where go back to mono. Well, that is a very short slice, but you see it ends right away when it gets to the next one. Okay, so that's basically through, which is really nice. And you see like this big guy here, if I can find it. There we go. Why is it so much longer than some of the other slices? Well, that's just the algorithm for slicing by transient at the sensitivity level we're at, 45%. It just happens to not pick up any other transients in that area based on the algorithm, based on the sensitivity. So that can be useful, but I do not really like that every single slice is not the same length because they're just trying to pick up transients with the sensitivity level. So what I like to do when I am chopping a song like this that is very beat-centric, which a lot of songs are, is not sliced by transient, but actually sliced by beat. But to do that, your initial sample first has to be mapped or warped to the grid, to the beat in Ableton for it to work correctly. So we're going to do a crash course in warping in Ableton, which is very powerful stuff here. So let me go back to our sample here. And say if I turn the metronome on, just like play, you'll see that it's not going to be on the grid or the beat at all. why it's 8/8. Let me do 4/4. So yeah, definitely not on the beat whatsoever. Okay, so let's hit Shift Tab, get to the clip view, and so the first thing we're gonna do is we want to find the start of the song, and I think I see it, but let's just listen so we can eliminate the static at the beginning. Turn the metronome off for a split second. Boom, right there. Okay, so that's easy. So even though it's not warped yet, Ableton is still reading transients. Let me mention this real quick. You drag it in, and by default, the warp button is on, but that's kind of a misnomer because you haven't really done anything to warp the clip at all yet. It just kind of means it is warpable, where if you turn it off, well, it's not warpable. But, yes there. But once we start warping it, to get back to the unwarped mode or state, we can unclick that. And we're going to do Complex Pro here. Even though it's a beat-centric one, Complex Pro is really good for, complicated songs. So like I was saying a second ago, even though it's not warped yet at all, it's still picking up transients indicated by these gray arrows right here at the top. So this was the first start of the song, right? Okay, so let's grab that one, and we're gonna right click, and we're gonna do two things right here. We're gonna set 1.1.1 here, meaning this is the start of the song, so we've eliminated the static at the beginning, and we're gonna hit warp from here straight. So you'll see over on the right here, these transients should lock into place. And, depending on the song, Ableton does a pretty good job with it. But we'll still have to do some doctoring on the other side. So let's hit it. Boom. Okay. So now, turn our metronome on. Let's hit play. That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good. And now it sounds faster than the original because right now we're at 124. But the warping algorithm in Ableton is smart enough to tell you pretty accurately where the home BPM is. And right now it's saying it's around between 117 and 118. So let's do 118. And now if we play it, it should be pretty much at the speed we're used to hearing it at. Cool, that sounds good. But just because the very beginning sounds like it's on the grid doesn't mean the whole sample is. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds here. And you'll see as you listen to it, they're going to start getting off the grid. And there are two reasons for this. One is that the algorithm of warping for Ableton isn't infallible. It's not perfect. But two, the sample that we ripped, Evelyn King, is an old school sample. And I almost guarantee that all of the instrumentation, the band, was recorded live at once. So they're human, they're going to drag, they're going to rush, but you never notice it unless you actually put it in this situation and compared it to a perfectly timed grid. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this, and we're going to, anywhere it drags or rushes, we're going to place it back on the grid. And that's the way we can slice it up easily. And also you do that, if you want to add your own drums to this, you want to add your own other instrumentation to this, you're going to need it on the beat. Otherwise, it's going to get messy real quick. So this takes a little bit of practice, but it's not too bad. What we want to do is we want to listen in various spots and to a point where you can kind of tell they're starting to drag or to rush. But you don't want to listen, say, way over to the right initially because they might be so off the grid at that point that you don't really know what's going on. You just want to find a point where it's just starting to drag or rush so you know which way to drag it back onto the grid. So let's listen here. See, already they're off. So let's go back just a little bit. Okay, boom, right there. So it's strategic what transients you grab. So I'm going to grab this one, and I know it's supposed to be on the beat, so they're rushing. They're a little ahead of the beat. So I'm going to drag it like this. And to lock it into place, you double click so it turns orange. So that means everything between these orange markers, everything before the latest orange marker is going to be locked in. So no matter what we do warping wise to everything to the right, the left section is going to be locked into place. All right, so let's continue. Okay, you can tell they're rushing, but I still know what's going on and where I am. They're not rushing so bad, so I'm gonna, okay, now they started to, so I'm gonna grab this one. See, I don't want to grab every transient under the sun, because that's going to sound too robotic. You want to keep the musical and the human element in place. So you just do it in strategic parts where they really start to get off. Oof. Let's go back here. All right, grab that one. Doop. Boom. Okay.
Give it to me right now. Give it to me right now.
Dragged a bit there, but they kind of found their rhythm again, their timing again, to say. Okay, and the trumpets come in. That's an important one to get on the beat. I think there's a breakdown here, which I bet they'll get off the grid really quickly again. Let's hear. Okay, here's the breakdown. Let me put that one. That's important right there. Oh, not bad. Okay, so here's an instance where I like where that transient is, so I want to lock it into place, but I don't need to move it anywhere. I don't need to drag it forward or back. I just want to lock into place so I know everything before that is already all good, and we're not manipulating it by doing stuff down the line. Okay, so that they're dragging pretty quickly there. Here, fine. Well, let's listen back to that small section that I just fixed. Okay, sounds pretty good. And you know, not every transient is going to be exactly on the beat. Once again, you want to retain the human element. Okay, dragging again pretty quickly there, so pull it forward. So let's see. I'll drag that one down. Oh, good. Okay, that's probably an important one to do. I've got to make sure it's alright. Dragging again real quick. Almost done here. Skip ahead if you guys get this already. Okay, so that's warping. Let's go back to our simpler. I'm just gonna erase that one and start new. Drag the whole thing in, and as you see, just like we set the 111 in the sample, that's gonna hold when you drag it to simpler. See, it's excluding that static we got at the beginning. So now, instead of doing, go to slice mode. There are transient slices, but instead of doing slicing by transients, let's do it by beat. And now automatically you see that they are all evenly spaced, which is good because we know our song is now on the beat. So instead of divisions, I'm going to go straight to one bar and go through. So there we go. Now one bar is so long, not that it's so long, but it's so long that we don't have 64 available to us anymore, which is fine with me. I think 64 is a little overwhelming. So let's increase this a little bit, 130. So let's see what we got.
Give it to me right now. 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 Give it to me right now.
Cool. That sounded pretty good. So I'm going to write a quick beat with that. So that's a few ways that I like to use the Simpler tool in Ableton. Next video, I'm going to show you how I utilized it on one of my tracks on my 2019 album, Starboard Flood. And I'll also give you a preview of how I'm using it on one of the new tracks on my new album, whenever that's coming out. Once again, my name is Darren Murphy, aka More Precious Dust. I hope you guys like what you saw today. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.